kilometers to leadership, the first in the trilogy of books, deals with life with the canvas of running as a backdrop. Specifically, the Comrades Marathon, which is an ultra-marathon run between the cities of Pietermaritzburg and Durban, a distance of 90 kilometers over mountains. The idea for the book germinated as I finished this iconic race some 5 years back. For me, to be able to put that into paper, to put all my emotions, the training, and what I had learned in life was extremely important. And there was no other way for me to articulate the same except to put it in a book. For me, as I started exploring more about the book, I got to know that there was a fair amount of validation of my thought about leadership and marathon running, to the extent that S&P top 500 companies actually have a correlation of a higher market capitalization if the CEO is a marathon runner. This was contrary to what common thought process would be, but I intended to research it more, and eventually I did a TEDx talk on the same. As things began to evolve more and more, I found it more of a compulsion to put my thoughts into paper. But at the end, the book is not about running, the book is not about corporate life. The book is merely about life and how it evolves, whether in a personal sphere or in a corporate sphere, but with the backdrop of running. I hope you enjoy reading the book as much as I did writing it. Thanks.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to the day 3 of PILF 2020. In our studio 2, our first session this morning is Understanding Indian Aesthetics and Tasting Rass. This is a masterclass of Dr. Alka Pandey. Dr. Alka Pandey is an art historian who taught Indian arts and aesthetics at Punjab University. She has been felicitated with various honors for distinguished contribution to arts, including Knight of the Order of Arts and letters by French government, Australian Indian Council Special Award, and others. Currently, Dr. Pandey is a consultant art advisor and curator of the Visual Arts Gallery, India Habitat Center, New Delhi. Thank you.
Hi, Ruchi. Good morning, and thank you for the nice introduction that you gave me. I also want to say a really good morning to all those who have left your important daily chores on a Sunday morning to listen in to the Pune International Literature Festival. I'd also like to compliment the very, very energetic director of the festival, Manjari. It is really, in many ways, difficult times, not only for us living every day. We are all facing the challenges of the pandemic, but for people like Manjari Prabhu, who spent months and months drumming up a festival, and then it all becomes virtual. I think many of us have also had webinar fatigue, virtual fatigue, but then, you know, we have to keep continuing, and we have to keep, our life as best as we can, even if it is through a virtual space. When we were talking of the Literature Festival, Manjari said that, you know, I do want to make it happen, and we must do it differently and bring in something extraordinary to the festival. And I am completely in agreement with Manjari. So this masterclass, I hope, will bring something, some joy, some aesthetics, some rasa in your life. We just thought that, with this kind of cultural renaissance, which is happening so much all over the world, actually, because we are getting more time to think, we are getting more time for ourselves, we are getting more time to reflect on things for which we never did have time. So I thought that it is an interesting time, Sunday morning, to think about rasa, about aesthetics, about the beauty and joy of life. And what could be a better place than going back in a time machine to, as what was for us the belle epoque or the golden period of Indian history, the Gupta period, and kind of re-looking at an important text, the Natya Shastra, and trying to look at it from our modern contemporary eyes. I'm not saying that we go back into the past, we go back into Sanskrit, we go back into a time machine, but we kind of start looking at our own selves and trying to understand who we are, where do we come from, uh, what is our aesthetics. Because just before the pandemic, this whole globalization of the world, we were becoming quite homogeneous, like a how should I say, like a KFC burger or a McDonald's burger. We were all looking alike. The patties were the same. The taste was the same. So, with this time now, let us see what it is to be Indian, what it is to also be international, what it is to be global, and what it is to uh, understand living in the subcontinent of India. How do we look at our own culture through a contemporary lens, which also has internationalism, which also has hybridity to it, which also has a cosmopolitanism to it. So when I go back to in a time machine, but yet looking at it with a contemporary lens, I think understanding aesthetics, tasting rasa, which is the title which Manjari gave to this session, to this masterclass, I think it would be interesting to take the two key words first, aesthetics and rasa. So when I look at, first let me go to aesthetics. Aesthetics is actually a modern addition, mid 18th century, by a German philosopher who coined the term aesthetica. It is not an Indian term. And when we look at aesthetics, it talks of the philosophy of beauty, of art, of taste. But in the Indian subcontinent, when we look at beauty, taste, art, we look at what is called Saundarya Shastra. And when we look at Indian aesthetics, we look at what is called Saundarya Shastra, which is the art of beauty. When we look at the aesthetics of the Western world, we also think one of the great writers of contemporary times is Umberto Eco, who also talks of the idea of beauty, but he also talks of the idea of the aesthetics, of the ugly. So when I go back to our aesthetics, I also go back to the theory of rasa, which was first seen in the Natya Shastra. The Natya Shastra, as you know, is really a text for the performing arts. But I, as a visual uh, person, as a trained art historian, and as a curator, I would also look at the theory of rasa in an international way. And when I look at the theory of rasa, which was part of the Natya Shastra, what I'm going to attempt to show in my masterclass is that there is a universality to the theory of rasa, which was written in around the 4th century. There are various people, when they talk of the fifth Ved, the Natya Shastra, they say that, the Geet was taken from the oldest book called the Rig Veda. The Vakya, or the recitation, was taken from perhaps the Yajurved. The dance was taken from the Samaved. So all the 4 Vedas were included and different aspects were taken, and they kind of composed and made up the Natya Shastra. Now, many people will wonder, and that is what I'm going to try and show in my master class, when I'll show juxtapositions of two images from dance and from visual arts. And you will see that there is definitely a correlation between the two images. So the rasa theory, which actually comes from or emerges from the Natya Shastra, has had 8 rasas, and we will look at it. The ninth rasa or the Shanta rasa was added somewhere in the 16th or the 17th century by Anantavardhan, a Kashmiri aesthetician. So we have the Navarasas, and I am today going to look at these 9 rasas. These are actually, rasa means juice, means actually enjoying and ingesting what today in Western languages is called an immersive experience. We've always, for us, it's always been an immersive experience. So the people who are imbibers of rasa, they are known as rasikas. And within the Indian context, a rasika was also a trained person. As in the West, they say, we all look at art differently. Each one, when they look at a work of art, will have a different response to it. So, in the same way, the rasikas also will interpret whether it is dance, music, theater, art. Everybody will have their own interpretation of that particular rasa because they carry with them their own knowledge systems, their own experiences, and they will all react to the image or the performance with the knowledge systems they carry. Having said that, within the Indian context, it is always about ananda. It is always about joy. Art is always about appreciating beauty. And within the Indian context, beauty gives perennial joy. And in this context, I would also like to use this very well uh, and often heard phrase, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. That what is Satya is beauty, and beauty is Shiva. So now that we've understood this whole thing of aesthetics, of rasa, I would like to begin with my presentation. And Chaitanya, thank you very much in advance, has already agreed to help me with the things. So I know it's technology. So in case anything goes wrong and the talk is a little disjointed, please bear with us. But I hope and I pray that everything will go smoothly. So we begin with the first slide, which is that of Shringar. No, first we begin with the Navarasas, which I will show you. Now these are the Navarasas. I begin with the Rasaraj, which is the king of all rasas, which is Shringar. Then is Hasya. Then is Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanak, Bibhasta, Adbhuta, and Shanta. As we go on to the individual rasas, I will kind of explain what rasa symbolizes which emotion, because there is a whole connection between ras and bhav. So ras is the juice and bhav is the emotion. Next slide. Now, what I've done is that I've taken a table to kind of explain to you that, you know, we were a very scientific culture, and today people talk of coding and all kinds of things, which is computer language. But we, in our own way, pre-modern India was already coded, and there was always a reason for everything. So when we look at here the rasa also, we see the meaning, And we see that there is an allegory, a metaphor, and a color coding for each rasa. What I have done is I've taken a viewpoint. There are some viewpoints which look at different rasas with slight different variations of colors, but that is also interpretive as you go along. This is the best part of Indian culture, that everybody is free to have their own meaning. Each word, the whole thing of dhvani avalok or dhvani, is suggested meanings. So here there are no hard and fast rules. There can be slight variations, but I'm just showing you how each color had a meaning and how each color had a particular, how each rasa had a bhav, particular bhav and a color. So Shringar, which is, as I said, is the Rasaraj, which is about love. The bhav was that of Rati. Rati was also the wife of Kama. So there you have Rati. The meaning is love, delight, embellishment. And the color is a pale light green. The second rasa is Hasya, which is humorous. And the bhav is Hasa, meaning is laughter. The color is white. Karuna. Now, Karuna could be pathetic. It could be kindness. There are lots of meanings to it. It could also be sorrow. And the color for this is a gray. It could be a pigeon gray. Then there is Raudra, which all of us know, which is the furious. It is anger, and the color is red. We then have the Veera Rasa, the heroic. It is all about heroism. And the bhava is Utasa, and the color is pale orange. We come to Bhayanak, which is also the fearful. We have a lot of fears in our lives. Then the color is black. Bibhasta, which is disgust. The color is blue. Adbhut, wonderful. Totally awestruck and unimaginable. The bhava is vismaya. The meaning is wonder. The color is yellow. And finally, the latest addition to the 8 rasas, and that's how we call it the Navarasas, is Shanta, which is peaceful, complete peace, and the color is white. Now, the thing what we need to see about the Rasa theory is that all the emotions are covered. And most of these emotions, their meaning, their understanding, is a universal way of looking. So if we look at it in a very global way or a very cosmopolitan way, we find that the Rasa theory is applicable to almost all cultures, because love, humor, kindness, the furious, the heroic, the fearful, the odious, the wonderful, the peaceful, these are all universal emotions. And it is the way you look or the way the artist presents the work, whether it is a performing artist, whether it's a dancer, a stand-up comedian, the various moods which are displayed, they all come under the broad umbrella of the Rasa theory, which, as I said earlier, also emerged from the Natya Shastra. Next. Now, I'm beginning with this most beautiful, the king of all rasas, called the Shringar. It is, and you know, on the right-hand side is the image from Khajuraho, and on the left is a more, image from, literally from calendar art, which is more modern. What I want to just tell you or read in the beginning is a beautiful portion, a little poem from the Rasikapriya of Keshavadas, because Shringar, you will see maximum is in medieval India, in the Riti Kalin poetry, in Bhakti. You will see it all over Khajuraho as well, where in the 4 Purusharths of life, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Kama plays a very important role, whether it is in Bhakti, whether it is in in the poetry, or whether it is in the physical representation in sculptures. In fact, I think probably Hinduism is the only religion or only way of living where, sexual pleasure or ananda or vilas is an important aspect of life. And here I will read a little thing from the Rasikapriya of Keshavadas from my book, Shringar, which is about the many facets of Indian beauty. Why I showed you this book is I'm not trying to not only promote my book, which has been written, after years of teaching aesthetics at the College of Art in Delhi, but also because in case you want to know more, because I can't talk so much in 45 minutes, you can always go back to my book. Now, what does Keshavadas say in his Rasikapriya, where he talks about the different Naikas? Her eyebrows dance with pleasure filled. Her hips, her waist at last has robbed. Her voice now agitated is, and with shyness her eyes do pause. Her movement now she knows no rest. You may demur to meet her friend. Her youth has made her ripening breasts and driven out her ignorance. So what you see in this poetry of Rasikapriya by Keshavadas, who wrote about the different Naikas, is the real physical way. There is no shyness, there is no coquettishness, but a general explanation of how life is. So the Shringar Ras becomes extremely important by way of the 9 rasas, because there is Shringar in everything we do. In the way we dress, it's also embellishment. In the way there is a relationship between a man and a woman, Shringar in when you go to the interiors of any household, the way the room is done. Shringar is present in every aspect in the appreciation of beauty. Beauty cannot be appreciated without the rasa of Shringar, because it has attractiveness, it has romance, it has love. Next. Now, hasya. This is, I think, to the best of my knowledge, on the left is a Kudiyatam dancer, where the probably Madhav Chakyar, where actually the facial expressions, in fact, in dance, even more than music, because it's so visual, the Navarasas are explained beautifully. So the expression on the dancer's face of hasya, the comic, of mirth, of comedy, of laughter, you can see, of course, this is a photograph, but when you're actually looking at a live performance, the whole aspect of mirth, of comedy, particularly in theater, and now more so in stand-up comedies, you find hasya coming across the bhav of rasya, really permeating through. And on the right, I have taken, of course, people can look at it differently, but here I am seeing how Krishna is having the last laugh. What he does, he's a naughty, naughty Krishna when he's in Vrindavan. He is not the more mature, the more strategic Krishna as he grows up and becomes the ruler of Dwarka, as the Partha Sarthi or the Sarathi of Arjun. He's none of those. Here he's a playful young adolescent, and all the gopis who go to bathe in the river. This is the wonderful image where he robs them of their clothes. The gopis are bathing in the river. They're all, they are all metaphors for this within the Advait philosophy of the unity of the Atma with the Paramatma. And they're all bathing. And what does Krishna do? He takes away their clothes. And he is sitting perched on top of a tree. And then suddenly the gopis realize that their clothes have vanished, and they run to Krishna. And then he says, you come and take your clothes. So what is he actually doing? While he is laughing at them in a more mortal way and, playing a prank on them, in a more metaphorical way, it is actually the story of, not story, but this whole thing of where the naked and the nude play no role in our art. It is about purity. Next. Now, this is Raudra. On the left is a dancer. As you can see the fury, you can see the anger on her face. So why I have kept the dancer on the left and always kept an artwork on the right for you to see the whole presentation, or the rasa, which is presented by the artist, and the bhava, which the rasika, or the emotions which are transferred through the performance or the artwork. Now, on the right hand side, you see the Mahish Mardini, the Dashabhuja Durga fighting the demon with the Mahisha, the buffalo demon, with all the fury and the anger she has. So, in sculpture, you see Raudra in a more contained, controlled way. And in dance, you see it in a more, how should I say, a more aggressive way when you're looking at the dancer, who's also probably showing the same kind of interpretation of killing the buffalo demon Mahishasur. Next. Now, this is Karuna, compassion. Here is the well-known Bharatanatyam dancer Leela Sampson showing Karuna, which is compassion, which is mercy. And these are things which are part of our lives, where there are often times when we say, please show us some compassion. When we are talking to God, we are always saying, show your mercy to us. And there we have the one aspect of Vishnu, Krishna, on the image on the right, just to show that how merciful they can be. Next. Yeah, this is another very interesting emotion, disgust, aversion. And on the left is an actress who is showing complete aversion to the protagonist who she is talking to. On the right, you see a very interesting transference of emotion. This is from a miniature painting, probably Jodhpur. It is Hiranyakashyap who is trying to fight with Ganesh, and there is the, he's a Asura king. He's a person who's actually been cursed, one of the gatekeepers of Vaikunt, who had to come to earth and fulfill the curse that they had incurred from the wrath. And here there is Ganesh who is looking at him with complete disgust. So this is the emotion that you are seeing right here. Next. Now, Bhayanak or terror, a very, very interesting emotion, because in various moments of our lives, we do face this emotion of terror, of horror, of Bhayanak. And again, a dancer shows it more expressively through her eyes, her gestures, her body. So the body form is very, very alive and alert, and also can transfer the chemistry, as they say. The chemistry is much more there. And you can see the terror, the horror on the dancer's face. On the right, I have taken an image. It's a wooden image of Bhairav. Now, Bhairav is the more fearful, the more fierce side of Shiva. As you know, that Shiva has many, many manifestations. There is the Somaskanda, there is, there are thousands. He's Nataraj, he's Shiva himself. There are so many manifestations of Shiva, but one of the important manifestations is that of Bhairav, where he's the Mahakal, and he's also known as the son of Shiva, because there are lots of myths associated how Mahakal was created by Shiva himself. Now, if you look at the fearful image, the Mahakal is always shown with a dog. And what you see here is that here he is with his dog, and he's made in wooden sculpture, and look at the expression on the face. Next. This for me is a lovely image, the Veera Rasa, the heroic. And here I wanted to show, of course, the heroic features in dance. There is the ladies, the dancer standing, the mudras are showing a heroic moment for her. But I'm looking at, on the right-hand side of the image of Shiva as Nataraj. And as Nataraj, this is one of the most popular depictions of Shiva. This is an image which is found maximum in the manifestations or the representations of Shiva, even more so than the Shivling itself. And this is a Chola Bronze. There are innumerable images of Shiva in Chola Bronzes as Nataraj. And what do you see here? He has his pasha in one hand, the damaru in one, the serpent. His hair is, kind of swinging around as he dances this big dance of preservation and destruction. His right leg is based and stepping on Apasmara, the dwarf of ignorance. He's surrounded by Kala, time, and the drum is also a beater of time. So you see a very vibrant, heroic kind of moment in this image of Nataraj. Next. Adbhut, wonder and awe. This is as they call it, a Hatriya dancer looking at wonder, at vismay, at awe. You can see, for a dancer, the most telling feature, one of the most telling features is the eyes. Then there are the hands, and then there is the whole thing of the feet and the body itself. So what do you see here is complete vismay in the face of the dancer. And on the right-hand side, I again show an image of Shiva, one of the most beautiful images, which is that of Ardha Nari Ishwara. So what is this Ardha Nari Ishwara? Definitely it looks, there is a woman on one side. On the left-hand side, it's the woman with a very rounded breast and a nipped-in waist and a kundal, and the stance, the S stance, or the three, or the more, how should I say, the lasya, which is in the body, the grace, the curve, and one of her hands is holding a mirror to look at herself. Whereas on the left-hand side is the more robust male. There is the leg is thicker, the shoulders are more masculine. There is no curvature in the waist. He's the hand is holding the trident, and there is just no. It is very clearly stated that that is a form of Shiva. So Ardhanari Ishwara means the Lord who is half woman. So it's Ardha, half, Nari, woman, Ishwara. So Lord who is half woman. And if you look at the most perfectly conjoined male and female in one form, what does it bring to you? Wonder. Adbhuta. How can a form have both such perfectly imaged male and female parts of the body? So I kind of end with the Adbhuta Rasa. No, sorry. I forgot the Shanta. How can I forget the Shanta? No. Chaitanya, we go back to Shanta. I forgot the Shanta. I stuck to the 8. Now, if you see Shanta, Shanta is, in fact, when we look at the how am I doing for time? I just want to know so that accordingly I will talk. Chaitanya, is it okay? Am I okay for time? So, what we see is in the Shanta Rasa, that is the ultimate, the sublimity. In Hinduism, ultimately, we are looking for sublime bliss. Moksha. What is moksha? But sublime bliss. Now, on the left-hand side of the image, you see a dancer with her eyes closed, her hands in a yogic Padmasana. And what do you see? Complete Shanti, peace, tranquility. And then I wanted to take a beautiful Gandhar Buddha, because in Buddhism, what do we see? Compassion, we see sublimity, because Buddhism is more about the middle path. And the middle path that we see is the path which brings us more of peace and tranquility. And what do you see here is the image of Buddha. He is sitting in Padmasana, meditating in a meditative mudra with his eyes closed. There is the ushnish on his head, the hairstyle, the top knot, and the Prabha Mandal at the back shows signs of a great personality. I mean, these are elongated ears. These were the signs of Buddha's interpretation when he started being shown by Buddhist artists. And here you see he's sitting in a mudra of complete peace and tranquility. This is Shantarasa. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. And what I wanted to just end by saying, in the understanding of rasa and ingesting of rasa and understanding aesthetics, is that, aesthetics is very, very personal. Of course, we have the tenets of aesthetics. In art, in visual arts, it's line, form, color very important, balance, harmony, symmetry. These are all the things which go into making an object which has all the aesthetic components to it. Because if you see an image or a painting where there is no harmony and balance, where there is no proportions, the aesthetics does get affected. And that is a very, very important, these are the canons of aesthetics. The other thing is that this comes deeply from philosophy. There are various philosophical aspects. And two very important people who I'd like to talk about from the Western point of view, it is Aristotle. And it was in the Republic and Plato. These were two important philosophers from Greece who actually laid down, from the academy, who laid down important essays into explaining what is aesthetics. Mimesis, which is imitation. In the West, it was believed that the only form of art which does not have mimesis, or which does not imitate anything, is poetry. That is the highest form of art, or the highest form of creativity, or the highest form of expression is poetry. In fact, if you look at Kumaraswamy, he's written a beautiful essay which is called The Transformation of Art from Nature, the transformation of nature into art. Within the Indian context, what we have is that we look at Prakriti, we look at art, we look at nature all the time to see or to get our inspiration. You know, they say Kamala Nayan. That is one of the ideas of a most beautiful eye, Kamala Nayan, which is that your eyes are like a kamal, mukula. Then you have Pad Pankajam, your feet are like lotus. So we take all our inspiration from nature. This is a very, very important thing. Prakriti is very, very important in Indian aesthetics. So if you have to understand Indian aesthetics, you have to not just know the textual interpretations or textual readings of the Rasa theory, or the the Chitrasut in the Vishnu Dharmottar Puran, which talks of the canons of painting, because India is a canonical kind of Indian art is very canonical. We have the agams, we have the Shilpa Shastras, which even tell you how to make an image. In the Shilpa Shastras, there are various detailed uh, uh, instructions given which image should be that of an Ashtadhatu, eight metals. How tall should the image be? What are the proportions of making a devalaya, which is a temple? So everything, all the canons are there. But to understand beauty or aesthetics, over time it has changed. There's constantly changing aesthetics. For example, in around the 4th century, at the time of the Didarganj Yakshi, if you look at that Yakshi, it's very full bodied. The woman has large pendulous breasts, a nipped in waist, there is a fold at the bottom of her stomach, and her thighs are like plantain trunks. That is what is supposed to be the height of beauty in India. But do we look at that kind of a Naika now? No. It is a more elongated. And it also, the aesthetics changes from geography to geography. You will see, for example, in the temples in Puri, in the Jagannath temple, the musicians that you see, or in Konark, they all have more rounder faces which look very much like the people of Orissa. When you go down to Tamil Nadu, you see a different kind of facial features. So this is also very much part of the morphology, depends a lot of regional variations when you kind of look at a survey of Indian sculpture. But having said that, there are certain commonalities of understanding of or the making of taste, which is all related to beauty in India. And what you see is that the Sanskrit poetry, whether it's Bhartrihari who writes on love, whether in fact reading Kalidas or his work will give a very, very good understanding of what Indian aesthetics is all about. And also aestheticians, many of them being Kashmiri aestheticians in India, they are actually the people who are the tastemakers of society. And a lot of our kings who patronized work and asked their uh, artists, sculptors to create works, very often it was the aesthetics of these rulers which guided some of the most fabulous temples, paintings, particularly in the medieval period. Many of the kings themselves were scholars, so they really guided they became the patrons, and the artists created work to suit their aesthetics. Thank you.
Thank you.